Hello and welcome to the all-new Motor Week. We've got the new car launches from around Europe, second-hand buyer's guide from Ian Royle, but first here's Ken Gibson with our first look at the brand new Jeep Cherokee.
Welcome to the top of the world. This really is the most incredible road test I've ever done. I'm testing the new Jeep Cherokee to the ultimate, which means I've just driven right the way up the side of a mountain, and there were no roads whatsoever. In fact, at times I couldn't even see a track. But the Cherokee, in true Jeep tradition, went up it as if it was having a stroll on a Sunday afternoon. Jeep became a 4x4 icon for over 17 years. It was the all-action American motoring hero. But just like Hollywood heroes, even motoring legends can't go on forever. Hence the arrival of this all-new Cherokee. Now when it comes to the rough stuff, the serious rough stuff, the Cherokee really is the real McCoy. This course we're now going on, which is a series of extremities, as you can hear there, and it's a course which would leave well over half of the Jeep's alleged rivals for dead. They would not get round here. What Jeep have achieved with the Cherokee is to combine all the ruggedness you'd expect, but wrap it up in a really nice, refined package. There's lots of nice, neat touches all around the car. Things like the satin chrome finish on the Limited gives it a real luxury type of feel. And we're now going down what looks like dropping off the end of a cliff. This is slightly intimidating because you come to it and you can't actually, looking above the bonnet, see anything at all. But I'm sure that everything is absolutely marvellous. The Cherokee gets two engines at launch, a big American 3.7 V6 and a new 2.5 turbo diesel. The 3.7's a wonderfully refined motorway cruiser and perfect around town, except for one thing. It does less than 15 miles to the gallon and around 20 miles on a long run. So if it's economy you're after, go for the new 2.5 diesel. It does over 30 miles per gallon combined, which is very impressive for a 4x4. It's pretty impressive as well on the refinement stay. It's quiet, cruises nicely, and the engine's pretty reasonable. Now the old Cherokee was an absolute natural off-road, but when it came to getting back on the on-road tarmac, it left an awful lot to be desired. In short, the steering was woolly, the ride was very choppy. It was not a pleasant place to be. Immediate reactions on getting into the new one is it's a dramatic improvement. The steering feels an awful lot firmer. The whole thing seems a lot tighter. That's no doubt down in some considerable measure to rack and pinion steering for the first time, new chassis and new suspension. Even with a brand name as good as Jeep, you have to get the price right to succeed these days. They're obviously targeting the Freelander 5-door as their benchmark, so expect prices to start around 18,000 and go up to 20,000 for the top of the range Limited. No worries if you ever end up with a lot of floods and heavy mud. Just look at this ahead. It's a question of mud, mud, glorious mud, and the Cherokee loves every inch of it. Having conquered the world, sadly, it's time to go back to civilization. But one thing I've found in my mini expedition Jeep have got themselves another winner on their hands, because I think that the new Cherokee has got all the potential to follow the success of the old one, which, let's face it, ruled the roost for 17 years. This one is just as impressive.
Yes.
Mr. Hammond, your Kia Rio is ready.
Oh, right. Thank you very much. Oh, God, why can't they let me sleep? I mean, Mr. Hammond, your Ferrari's ready, yeah, but Kia? A Kia. Right then, the Kia Rio. Oh, God. Wait a minute. Can you hear what I'm thinking? Cool. Right then, this should be fun. Cheap and cheerful motoring for the masses. Well, cheap anyway. It starts from about £6,000. The most you can pay is about 8. There is a choice of engines, a 1.3 litre and a mighty 1.5, and they're not bad. Yeah, right. Still doesn't look too bad. They made a decent job of the styling. Certainly not a box on wheels. Quite swoopy, in fact. Of course, with engines that small, fuel economy isn't going to be a problem. In fact, you will get massive mileage out of just the tiniest drop of fuel. Oh, great. Economical. Welcome to Economy Corner with Richard Hammond, my favourite subject. Oh, God, that's better. Of course, it might be cheap, but it is still an estate car, which means it's got to be practical. And there is loads of room on board, front and back. Remember, this thing starts from about £6,000. Whew, better. Kia Rio, you know. Of course, in all this just £6,000 frenzy, we are forgetting one thing. If you want an estate car for that money, you could buy a second-hand Volvo. Mind you, there's those people who always want a new car, whatever it may be. As long as it's new, I don't care, dear. Each to their own, eh? Still, my head's... Oh, hello. Oh, sorry. My head still hurts. Why not go back to my hotel room? I've got a minibar there. Nice to relax a bit more. Copenhagen's a funny place, isn't it? Good Lord. Is that the gear change? Well, it is cheap. I mean, what can you expect? £6,000, you know. Oh. Now, I'm not saying that it's a lot of car for your money, but it is a car for your money. And at these kind of prices, that is in itself something of an achievement. And if all you need is simple, basic, rugged transport at low cost, there it is.
Car makers like Jaguar are not ones to change their cars on a regular basis. Sure, they tweak every now and then, but models stay largely the same for years. So in the mid-90s, they were faced with replacing the aging XJS, which had been around for over 20 years, and although it had classic lines, was well past its sell-by date. And so in 1996, Jaguar launched its stunning XK8 Coupe. Priced at nearly £50,000 new, this was definitely a car for someone with money. But now, 5 years on, just how cheap have XK8s got, and could you afford one? Well, quite possibly. If you could come up with £25,000, a nice XK8 like this could be yours. Once you get motoring, you begin to realise the whole Jaguar feeling and the ambience of the car. Silky smooth transmission, that 4-litre engine purring away under the bonnet. This standard XK8 gets 290 brake horsepower, 4-speed automatic gearbox, and the chance to use the J-gate manually as well. Or you could have the XKR, which is the supercharged 4-litre unit, 370 brake horsepower and one very, very quick car. And don't forget that you then have to decide whether you want coupe or cabriolet. Decisions to make. I've always had a real soft spot for the Jag. There's something very beguiling about this car. Sure, it's built on the same platform as its predecessor, the XJS, but the two cars could not be more different. And having owned an XJS in the past, I speak from experience. You only have to walk round the car to reveal how gorgeous it is. Sweeping lines, a hunched look waiting to pounce, big 18-inch alloy wheels, a mighty 4-litre V8 engine under the bonnet, a car more at home on the fashionable boulevards than hurling down fast country lanes. So, exactly how much money do you need to afford an XK8? Well, here's our guide. The cheapest we could find as an approved car from a main dealer was £23,000 for a 96 P-Reg coupe with 50,000 miles and a standard car. Fancy a convertible? Well, they cost that bit more, I'm afraid. 36 grand for an S-Reg 4-litre with 50,000 miles. So, how do you sum up a Jaguar XK8? Well, refined, civilised, a joy to sit in, and the drive's not bad either. If you want one, make sure it's got full Jag service history. High mileage cars shouldn't put you off. That's this week's One Careful Owner tip, the Jaguar XK8.
Well, that's it for part one, but right after the break, we've got a VW head-to-head between the Passat and the Golf and our regular look at Formula One.
The hot hatch had a hard time in the early 90s with car crime pushing insurance premiums through the roof. But there has been a strong resurgence recently with cars such as the Renault Clio 172 and Seat's Ibiza Cupra. The hot hatch is back. It's here to stay and it's meaner than ever. So it seems strange that VW, the company behind the hot hatch revolution and the company that moulded the small car performance market as we know it today, should launch a diesel variant of their much-loved GTI. Now, when the Golf was launched 20 years ago, other manufacturers desperately tried to capture the magic and put it into their own pocket rockets. The question is, can this GTI pretender live up to the family name? Now, the Passat TDi isn't going to get unwanted attention from your local scallies. No, it is more likely to get admiring glances from your dad and the local company rep. I'm not saying that this car is bad, I'm just saying it's a little bit dull. But since its recent facelift, it can take on the likes of the Mondeo and the Laguna. So the big question is, which of these VWs is going to give you better value for your money? Now in the Passat, the fit and finish is first class and the driving position excellent. We've got electric windows, central locking and climate control as standard and, a must for any long distance driver, ceiling mounted sunglass holder. Now there's enough space in here to sit 5 people comfortably, with room left over in the boot for anything you might want to put in there. Now, when the Golf was launched, it was supposed to have mass market appeal, which it did have, but somewhere along the way, VW forgot that philosophy because at a tad under £17,000, this car is now encroaching on BMW 3 Series territory. But VW still insist on marketing it against the likes of the Ford Focus and the Vauxhall Astra. So this Golf has got twice as many competitors as all of its rivals, which can outdo the Golf on most things, including the price. Inside, it's very Germanic. The seats are comfortable, but they're sporty and hip-hugging. The dash is very well laid out, uncluttered and certainly not gaudy. And the finish, well, it's exactly what you'd expect from VW. But my favourite bit are the blue lights that illuminate the dials when it gets dark. It's a great, if somewhat noisy car to travel smoothly and sedately round town in. But put your foot down and it'll respond quite eagerly. Get it out onto the country roads, work your way through the notchy 6-speed gearbox and you're going to be having a lot of fun. Under normal circumstances, the words performance and diesel don't inspire images of blast-down country lanes. But if you're buying a car with a GTI badge, you're going to be expecting impressive performance. Now, what I'm about to say might embarrass those of you who've got petrol versions of the 2-litre GTI. With a 0 to 60 time of 10.3 seconds, it pips the 2-litre by 0.02 of a second and matches the top speed of 121 miles an hour. In terms of performance, the Passat can't live with the Golf. But then again, why should it? After all, the car is aimed at a completely different customer. You don't buy a Passat for throwing around country lanes. No, you buy it for long drives up and down the motorway with your carpet swatches in the boot. But just for the record, the Passat has 15 brake horsepower less than the Golf, which equates to a 0 to 60 time of 12.4 seconds. So it's never going to have you on the edge of your seat, although it will have you cosseted in comfort. In a straight line, the Passat is a very refined car to travel in. It's really solid and it's got a good punch of power through the mid-range. But very much like the Golf, when you get to the corners, it really is quite wallowy. And I feel that this lets down the ride really quite drastically. So, which of the cars would you choose if you had £17,000 to spare? Well, they're both highly accomplished in their own right. I mean, if you want the hot hatch performance with the diesel fuel economy, then the GT TDi is definitely worth a look at. But if you're going to go up and down the motorway all day and you want more status than the Mondeo or the Laguna could ever afford you, then the Passat's the car for you. But which one am I going to pick? Well, it has to be the Golf. I mean, it is the legendary hot hatch. It looks fantastic, fabulous finish inside and out, and it's faster than the Passat, and it's cheap to run. It might be a tad expensive at just under £17,000, but it's a VW, and I reckon you get what you pay for.
Finally, a Motor Week Car Formula One roundup. For BAR, although qualifying for Hockenheim was disappointing, it all came together during the race to give a third position for Jacques Villeneuve. Of course, racing is a team effort, and the technicians this year have been battling with the mid-season rule change, allowing electronic systems like traction control, which make life easier for the drivers, but not for engineers like BAR's Malcolm Osler.
It's another level of technology added to the sort of sophistication and complication already in the cars. It makes them, I mean, when you go to somewhere like Monaco, and people always talk about, Monaco's got at least 4,000 gear changes or whatever per race. They don't need to do that anymore. They don't need to change up or down. They can leave the grid and drive around all afternoon without changing gear once. A lot of gear changes happen, but it's not down to the driver to do. It changes it from that point of view on the human aspect of what the driver's doing. And obviously the content of our engineering team has to change a bit because we've got a whole extra layer of development because we're allowed to.
That's right, the more you are able to do, the more you must do in order to match the pace of all the other teams. But it's never simple, and the introduction of, say, launch control affects the engine, the tyres and a variety of other systems, and all these have to be put through their paces by test drivers, like Darren Manning.
Well, basically, when you're out on the circuit to drive a Formula One car, basically, the most important area and where the time is on the entry and the middle of the corner. So traction control is just evening it out really as a driver's point of view and making it easier on the throttle.
So traction control isn't the quantum leap that one might expect and doesn't make driving radically different.
Not so much difference when you're on new tyres because you don't use it so much because there's so much grip there from the tyres anyway, so you can use the full power of the engine. But then when the tyres are getting a bit older and you know on a race distance or something like that, it's quite important that you get the traction control right so you're balancing and making the tyres last longer.
Meanwhile, for Toyota, spending this year on the sidelines before entering Formula One next season, we asked Toyota boss Ove Anderson how preparations were going.
At the moment, I think we are running very much on schedule. We have had some recent tests in Imola and Monza, and I think we are all proud to say that the times we did would have meant that we should have qualified for the race had we been actually participating in the race.
For a new team, it's important to test on as many circuits as possible, as General Manager Richard Cregan explains.
We've been in Imola and Monza. We will go now to Barcelona. We will also go to the UK. We will go to Magny-Cours as well. And we will try and get in as many circuits as we possibly can this year.
To celebrate the one sunny day of the year, we're getting our tops off on Motor Week as we look at convertibles from all the major manufacturers. We'll see you next week.